자, 5일 동안 5분의 특별한 손님을 모시고 출발하는 모닝스페셜 초대석 시간. 오늘 그 네 번째 시간입니다. 2023 영어 공부 플랜 짜기라는 제목으로 저희가 정말 어렵게 한 분 한 분 모셔서 얘기 나누고 있는데요. 오늘은요. 영어 중에서도 이제 비즈니스 영어 고수시죠. 남주철 aka Jooch 선생님 모셨습니다.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm not sure about the 고수 part. I'm not that much of an expert.
Yes, you are.
I
Yes,
just
you are.
have a lot of experience of making errors, which I would love to share with you.
Would you like to say hi to our listeners and give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Jooch. My Korean name is Namjuchal, which I never use in broadcasting, but thank you for mentioning that anyway. Yeah, I was actually I was born in Korea, but I was raised in Michigan, and I studied in Washington, D.C. So I spent most of my time in the U.S., but I came back to Korea in 2005. Although I majored in international relations, I thought I was going into like foreign service and diplomacy. I actually got somehow pulled into broadcasting, and I fell in love with it. I love education, especially. And ever since 2007, I started right here at EBS on Morning Special, of all places.
Oh, wow.
So-
Was that here in Ilsan or back in Umyeondong?
Oh, way back in Umyeongdong, back in 2007.
Yeah.
And the longest run I guess I had at EBS was writing and hosting 김과장 비즈니스 영어로 날다, right? It's such a long name. It's such a tongue twister. But because I have a lot of business experience personally and professionally, I guess a lot of those experiences kind of carried into my books, carried into
Sure.
broadcasting. So I would love to share a lot of my personal experiences in business.
네, 여러분 너무 반가우시죠? 오늘 주치 선생님 이렇게 모셨는데요. 지금 인사 말씀 또 질문 올려주실 곳 반디 그리고 샵 1045 유튜브로도 참여해 주실 수 있습니다. 반디는요, 우리 애플리케이션이고요. 그러면 샵 1045는 짧은 문자 50원, 긴 문자 100원의 이용료가 듭니다. 유튜브로 지금 라이브 스트리밍 중이에요. EBS 라디오 공식 채널 들어오시면 되겠습니다.
Wow, YouTube.
네. 자, 그렇게 해서
The global show.
오늘 우리 주치 선생님께 사연과 또 질문 이렇게 보내주신 분 중 3분 뽑아서 EBS 오디오 어학당 굿즈를 보내드리겠습니다. 자, 카메라에 한번 잡아볼게요. 우리가 이 굿즈 너무 예뻐서 좀 자랑을 하고 싶은데 카메라에 한번 잡힐까요? 예, 뭐냐면은
Nice and purple.
이 노트랑 펜이랑 텀블러랑 이렇게 세트예요. 네.
Can I have one?
저도 탐나요. 자, 여러분 지금 바로 남주철 선생님, 주치 선생님에게 샵 1045 반디 유튜브를 통해서 질문과 인사 말씀 많이 올려주시면 되겠습니다.
Any questions, welcome.
네, 그럼요. 네. 자, 김 과장 그 프로그램 얘기를
Yes.
아까 좀 하셨어요. 근데 선생님은 남씨인데?
Yeah, that's true. South.
자, 그리고 그 김 과장 프로그램은 몇 년도에 진행하셨는지 혹시 기억나세요?
I started back in 2011
오케이.
and ended around 2018.
Oh, wow.
So it was 7 full years. I'm sure you know you've done a lot of writing yourself. But I think I was one of the few people that did EBS for full-time 7 years because writing actually takes a lot of time.
It does. Yeah.
And translating and coming to EBS for broadcasting and recording. So the way everybody asks, like, how was your time at EBS? You're writing all those books and broadcasting, working full-time. I kind of like to phrase it as it was painfully wonderful and wonderfully painful. And I'm kind of taking a note from the old president, Theodore Roosevelt. One of my favorite sayings, he says, every time he described his presidency in the United States, he basically said it was a glorious burden. It was glorious and wonderful, but it was also like a heavy burden he had to carry. So it was stressful and happy at the same time.
Yes. 그 7년 동안
Yeah.
너무나도 행복하면서도 스트레스를 많이 받는 행복한 스트레스를 많이 받으셨군요.
It was happy stress.
근데 그때 당시와 지금 이 비즈니스 영어 환경이 좀 많이 바뀌었을 것 같아요. Let's say 10 years ago in 2013, the business environment where you have to use English here in Korea may have been a
Right.
bit different to how it is now. 그래서 이제 지금 비즈니스 영어 환경이 얼마나 어떻게 달라졌다고 보세요?
The way I see it, I don't think the culture has changed so much, but the environment obviously changed in the last 3 years because of COVID-19.
Ah, yes, of course.
The words we use, the phrases we use, our expressions, business terminologies, it hasn't really changed much in the last 10, 20 years, to be honest. But the situation obviously changed.
Yeah.
So the words and phrases and patterns we use, that's because we're so tuned into the online presence, right? And we call it, Zoom languages, Zoom lingo, and Zoom phrases. So the environment really, really did change. And we're actually working in an age where everybody's either working from home.
Yeah.
We call it WFH.
You're right. It's in the dictionary
It's
even.
in the dictionary,
Yeah.
right. Also, we call it hybrid work. Sometimes you go into work, like every other day you go to work, every other day you work from home.
Yeah.
So hybrid work is actually a new term that we started using couple of years ago, right? But then in my case, I have several projects I'm working on. Half of them I work from home. The other half I bounce back and forth.
Right.
So I'm living a combination of working from home. It's a perfect hybrid situation I'm living in.
Exactly.
With that actually comes all these new phrases that have become normal now.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of them, right?
Some of them,
Yeah.
for sure. 코로나 이전에는 우리가 쓸 일이 별로 없었던 아니면 존재하지 않았던 그런 용어들이 이 팬데믹 기간 동안에 특히 재택근무가 많이 늘어나면서 많이 생겼죠. 뭐 어떤 게 있을까요?
Like, let's say you and I are doing a Zoom call or like an online meeting.
Yeah.
And you're talking and I can't hear you. Oh, hey, you're on mute. I hear this all the time.
You're on mute.
Because the automatic setting is actually on mute. So you have
네.
to unmute it.
네.
Click on that microphone icon.
음소거 상태인가 봐요. 이거를 영어로 you are on mute.
Mute.
그래서 이걸 조금 축약해서 you're on mute.
You're on mute.
네.
MUTE, right?
네.
Or some common things. Oh, can you hear me? Or can you see me?
사실 비즈니스 영어에서 이런 말 할 일이 별로 없었죠, 전에는.
Exactly, right.
근데 이제는 can you hear me? 뭐 이런 어떻게 보면 쉬운 문장이지만 굉장히 유용하게 많이 쓸 수 있는.
Every time,
네.
like you do a presentation, you're kind of sharing your files.
Sure.
You say, "Can you see my screen? Can you see my video?" Right? Some of these phrases, questions we've never used before
In business.
In business,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to do like an actual in-person meeting. So can we meet offline?
Right,
When can
right.
we meet offline?
Aha, when can we meet offline?
Right. The term offline has almost never been used before, but now with the advent of all these like online meetings and presentations, we just kind of say it on a daily basis now.
사실 팬데믹 기간 동안에는 오프라인보다 거의 온라인으로 모든 저기 사업이나 뭐 일을 많이 했었기 때문에 오프라인에서 만날까? 오프라인에서 어떻게
Right.
대면해서 우리가 좀 회의를 할 수 있을까요? 이런 표현들을 부쩍 많이 쓰게 됐죠.
Right. Also, another expression that I've never used before, but I only started using it maybe 2-3 years ago is, oh, I need to jump on another call.
I need to jump on another call.
Jump on is a good expression. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need to get on another call. So I need to leave this chat room or video conference room and get on another video conference room.
지금 다른 화상 회의를 제가 해야
Right.
해서요. 이런 뜻으로
Right.
I need to jump on another call.
Right. Here, call can be a phone call, but it can also mean like a Zoom call.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
So jumping on another call has become another common expression there since
진짜
COVID. Right?
그 전에는 비즈니스 잉글리시에 들어가지 않았던 표현들이 참 많네요.
Right. So COVID basically gave birth to this new kind of business meetings, business culture, business etiquette, if you will. But at the same time, it's good to, safely. A lot of these business English expressions and terminologies, they're still relevant.
Yeah.
We still use them, probably in the same context, but we're living in a different situation, and so many meetings have gone online that it's become a little bit uncomfortable because you're kind of stuck in this little, your monitor, right?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
laptop monitor.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little bit, frustrated sometimes. You don't really see the body language so much. Only your
exactly.
facial expressions.
Well, talking about frustration,
Right.
a lot of our listeners are probably working right now, or they have work to go to, and might be thinking, it's really hard to make time to study English. 영어 공부하고 싶긴 하지만 좀 뭐 직장 다니느라 너무 바쁘고 그래서 정말 스트레스 많이 받으시는 분들 계신데요. 이분들에게 주실 수 있는 팁이 있을까요?
You know, I read this Harvard study many years ago that when you're stressed out, you lose three particular abilities or skills.
스트레스를 받으면은 이것이 세 가지가 상실이 된다.
In order.
Okay.
Number one is math. Number two is memorizing.
계산 능력, 기억 능력,
And number three is language.
언어 능력.
Learning basically speaking properly, right?
너무 맞는 것 같아요.
So like all three of these things actually apply to language learning.
Really?
Because you have to constantly calculate and because the grammar structure is so different between Korean and English, right? Also you have to memorize a lot of words and expressions, especially idioms. So language actually
That's why it has to be fun.
It has to be fun, exactly.
Yeah.
Which leads to my next point. How do you make it fun though? How do you make language learning fun? Number one, there is no shortcut, okay? There's no magical formula. I hear this question all the time. What is the fastest way? How quickly can I learn English? Is there a shortcut? There is no shortcut.
There is no shortcut.
If I want to learn British English, let's say, I want to learn the British accent with amazing Sue. Like,
There is no shortcut.
is there a short? Really? Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Always ask me this question.
지름길은 없습니다. There is
없죠,
no
네.
shortcut. 네, 그렇지만 아까 얘기했던 게 이게 정말 다시 한번 반복을 하고 싶을 정도로
Right.
중요한 얘기네요. 스트레스를 많이 받으면 계산 능력, 이게 math니까 뭐 이제 단순한
Calculating.
뭐 이제 덧셈 뺐음 이런 거일 수도 있는데 어쨌든 계산 능력, 그다음에 memorization, 기억력, 그리고 마지막으로 language, 언어 구사력이 떨어진다고 해요. 그러니까 우리가 언어를 공부하면서 스트레스를 많이 받는 것은 사실 이게 뭔가 안 맞는 거죠. 그래서 최대한
It's not a good fit.
쉽진 않지만 최대한 재밌게 영어 공부를 해야 된다라는 데서 이제 지금 다음 얘기를 하고 있는 겁니다.
So I guess to make it fun, or at least make it interesting,
Yeah.
it's good to, I always tell people, join a study group.
A study group.
But not just any study group, but people with like-minded interests, with similar level English proficiency, and it can be offline or online. So when you learn with people who are equally motivated with equal skill sets, it actually makes it naturally interesting and fun.
그렇군요. Like-minded people, 비슷한 뭐 취미라든지 좀 생각이 비슷한 사람들끼리 이런 스터디 모임을 결성하게 되면 그러면은 아무래도 좀 더 편안하게 영어 공부할 수 있겠네요.
So there are many things to talk about because you and I have, let's say, have many things in common.
Yeah.
You love traveling, you love music, let's say you love sports. I love all those three things. So basically, you and I can have an ongoing discussion on a daily basis because we have mutual passions, right?
아하, 그러네요. 그러니까 취미가 비슷하고 관심사가 비슷하면은
Right.
자연스럽게 그 주제를 가지고 끊임없이 얘기를 할 수가 있으니까 사실 이제 아무 관심 없는 주제를 가지고 대화를 하려고 그러면 스트레스잖아요. 만약에 갑자기 선생님이 저한테 이제부터 일주일 동안 그 뭐 NFL에 대해서 얘기를 하자.
Football.
그러면은 전 갑자기 지금부터 스트레스가 오면서 말 버벅거리고 기억력이 뚝 떨어지고 그러는 것 같은데.
You can't really have a conversation, right?
I can't. No,
Yeah.
no.
So there's an old saying in Africa that which everybody knows, I think. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together, right?
명언이죠. 네, 아프리카 속담입니다. 만약에 빨리 가고 싶으면 혼자 가라. 그러나 멀리 가고 싶으면 함께 가라.
Together.
네.
Right.
자, 아까 선생님이 there's no shortcut, 지름길은
Yes.
없다라고 했지만 그래도 우리가 현실적으로 갑자기 영어로 프레젠테이션을 해야 된다든지 갑자기 영어를 써야 되는 일이 생길 수
Right.
있어요. 그때
That's
좀 뭐 is there anything we can do in that situation?
I've actually had the reverse situation because
Oh.
my Korean is not perfect, obviously.
아하.
So sometimes I have to write an email to somebody in Korean, but it's a formal email, let's say.
Yeah, and it's tricky.
My writing is not that great. So what do? I naturally resort to online translations.
Okay.
I don't know if I can say Papa Go, but I think I've used all the translators. But I think thus far, the N company Papago actually is probably the most accurate.
Oh, really?
Because they've
English to Korean, right?
Korean to English, English to Korean.
Both.
Both ways, yeah. It's not 100%, but I would
네.
safely say a little bit over 90% accurate, but it is a little bit off when it comes to certain nuances,
네.
certain idioms and
뭐 협찬
expressions.
받으신 건 아니시죠? 여기는
Absolutely not, right?
네, 그래요. 뭐 사실 여러 가지 방법이 있겠지만, 네, 선생님이 그냥 솔직히 개인적인 경험에 의하면은 뭐 이러한 번역 서비스가 참 좋더라라는 정말 급할 때는 뭐 이게 이메일로 좀 비즈니스 영어를 써야 될 때는 대충 쓰면 안 되거든요. 그럴 때는 좀 도움이 되겠네요.
But using this translate, don't just use it as like an easy way out. Don't think of it as like, oh, it's a shortcut way for me to solve all my problems. You should actually study the translations. Run the translator, study how the translator translates, and to compare your own translation.
네, 급할 때는 일단은 이런 번역 서비스를 이용하고 그 다음에 이제 시간 여유가 좀 생기면은 번역된 걸 가지고 공부를 하는 거죠.
Absolutely.
내가 쓴 이메일이니까 훨씬 공부하면서도 뭔가 기억도 잘 나고 네, 많이 남을 것 같아요.
Also, if you do a lot of these online searches, because when you're working in business, there are common themes that are repetitive, like writing a thank you letter or congratulatory letter, how to make requests, and all these things. If you simply do an online search and say, best samples of a certain letter, you'll get millions of hits.
아, 이것도 아주 좋은 팁일 것 같아요. 사실은 이제 영어로 검색해가지고 비즈니스 영어 도움 받는 방법이 많은데 뭘 검색해야 되는지를 모르실 수 있어서 지금 바로 남수천 선생님이 알려주신 것처럼 best examples of 하고 나서 뭐 예를 들자면
letter, certain
비즈니스
email,
이메일 아니면은 비즈니스 프레젠테이션 뒤에는 이제 단어는 선택적으로 넣으시면 되는데 앞에다가 영어로 이렇게 검색을 하시면 샘플이 정말 수백 개 수천 개가 이렇게 뜹니다.
Actually, a lot of the real samples, I apply them into my old books of Kim Kwajang 영어로 날다, right?
그렇군요.
So you can just go back and look at those books and look at those samples of emails, presentations, interviews. And you can actually study them over and over again.
아, 그래요.
So I really want to emphasize the point of reviewing and repeating, especially if you want to focus on speaking, just kind of study out loud, recite out loud.
네.
It really helps.
이미 어느 정도 좀 요약이 된 EBS 김과장 예전 오디오 파일도 다시 들어보시면은 큰 도움이 될 것 같네요. 자, 여기서 잠시 노래 듣고 쉬어가도록 하겠습니다. 여러분 계속 사연, 질문 보내주세요. This is Imagine Dragons, Thunder. Imagine Dragons의 Thunder 들으셨어요. 6796님이요. I'm a big fan of yours. 김 과장님.
Thank you.
남 과장님이라고 불러야 되지 않을까. Voice tone, good personality는 다 타고나셨나요? I'm always rooting for you 하셨는데 네, 우리 김 과장을 진행했던 남주철 선생님 지금 계시거든요.
I'm blushing right now.
네, 타고나신 거죠? You were born with your incredible voice and your lovely personality.
I don't know about that,
don't
but thank you,
know?
sir. Thank you so much for your kind compliments.
네, 이영미 님이요. 세상에, 어머나, 김 과장 영어로 날다 저자 및 진행자시구나. 진짜 궁금했었는데 목소리도 좋으시고 하셨습니다.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
네.
I never know what to say when somebody compliments me because I'm naturally a shy person. It's hard to believe, but I'm just very,
그래요.
I'm literally blushing.
선생님을 더 많이 우리 부끄럽게 만듭시다. 최규호님은요. 오늘 처음 뵙는데 목소리 너무 멋지세요. 제가 아는 최고의 김 과장님이세요 하셨습니다.
Oh, thank you. You can call me 남 과장님.
지금은 진행 안 하니까.
Right.
아, 그래요. 자, 많은 분들이 이렇게 또
Thank you
인사
so
말씀
much.
주셨고 질문 주신 분도 계세요. 서진화 님이 선생님 질문 있습니다. 컨퍼런스 콜에서 의견을 더 명확히 전달할 수 있는 팁이 있을까요?
You know, when it comes to business, not just business, right? When it comes to daily conversations, when you're having, like you and I are having a conversation,
Yeah.
of course, you and I have known each other for a long time. But in business, that's not always the case. It's not really what you say, but it's really how you say it. That I always tell this to people all the time, whether in a professional setting or in a personal setting. Yeah, of course, learning the basic grammar and structure and syntax, they're very important, but speak with confidence. Like speak with as if you own what you're saying. So you're the owner of your own content, you're the owner of your own opinion. So it's really, don't be so overbearing. But, you know, in the English culture or the Western culture, we always talk about like, look at somebody in the eye and speak with so much confidence. But I'll give you one tip that's going to help you speak with confidence. when you're shy, your tone tends to go up, right? I'll be honest, when I speak Korean sometimes, I'm like, 안녕하세요.
톤이 올라가요.
네, 톤이 좀 올라가요.
자신감이 떨어지면.
Because your confidence is not that high. 이게 쫀다고 하잖아요. 이게 쫀다는 표현이 목도 쫄아요.
그렇군요.
나도 모르게 쫄아요.
너무 이해가 잘 되네.
So, intentionally lower your tone.
좀 저음으로
Yes.
네, 자신감 있는 목소리를 내려고 해보시는 게 어떻게 보면 그 자신감이 더 잘 전달이 될 것 같다. 무엇을 말하느냐보다 어떻게 말하느냐가 중요하다.
Right. So there are many tips I can give you, but if I can give you one representative tip, just kind of speak with confidence and kind of lower your tone and look them in the eye and just own your content, right?
네. 사실 이거는요, 우리 그 뉴스 진행자들 사이에서도 하는 얘기예요. 왜냐면은 뉴스를 이렇게 안녕하십니까? 이렇게 하면은 신뢰가
날씨는
날씨뿐만 아니라 오늘은 정치 뉴스에서 이렇게 하면은요, 이게 신뢰도가 뚝 떨어집니다. 이거는 이제 입증이 된 사실이에요. 그 앵커링에 있어서 그렇기 때문에 사실은 뭐 약간의 중저음이 조금 더 신뢰도를 높이는데 좋습니다. 전 뭐 어떻게 하다 보니까 원래 그냥 이 목소리이긴 한데 어쨌든.
By the way, I love your voice. I listen to your show all the time.
Thank you.
But Sujin has like this kind of alto type of tone, which is very comfortable to listen to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
저 실제로도
팬이에요.
알토 하기도 했었어요.
Really?
과여에서. 네. 뭐 소프라노도 했지만. Anyway, 자 그래요. 그래서 이렇게 목소리 톤만 조금 바꾸셔도 자신감이 있어 보일 수 있다라는 좀 아주 실용적인 팁을 주셨습니다. 0412님은요. 비즈니스 영어에 관심이 많은데요. 그래서 일주일에 2번 정도 비즈니스 관련 기사들을 읽고 표현들도 공부하기는 하는데 혼자 해서 그런지 가끔 지루해요. 재미있게 공부하는 방법 없을까요?
I don't know if this person was listening during the early part of our program. Never study English alone. Like never study any language alone. Because the reason why you're learning a language is to communicate with somebody, is to connect with someone. So we have a lot of these inputs, right?
Right.
You have to make time to create an output. There's always an input-output. Listening, speaking, reading, writing, right? So yeah, especially business English, studying this alone, it's going to be boring. It's boring for me. It's very dull, right?
네, 뭐 러닝 파트너 뭐 있듯이 영어 공부도 좀 할 수 있다면 나랑 레벨이나 성향이나 이런 게 좀 비슷한 분을 찾으셔서 하면 좋겠네요.
If you want to go far, you have to go
together.
Together, exactly.
자, 그래요. 우리가 이 코너를 2023 영어 플랜 짜기, 영어 공부 플랜 짜기라고 이렇게 이름을 붙였는데요. 이 플랜을 이제 새해니까 다 짜고 있단 말이에요. 선생님이 봤을 때는 뭐 어떻게 앞으로 영어 공부 플랜을 짜면 참 좋을까요?
It's actually good to plan out your. There's an old saying: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So basically, you have to be specific and detailed and realistic about your plans. Number one, make sure when you're sick, what do?
You go to the doctor.
You go to the doctor. You go to the hospital, and you get a diagnosis. What is wrong with Sujin today? Let's say you're sick.
쟤 왜 저래 이러는 것 같은데 지금 그런 건 아니시죠?
So what is wrong with me, right? Same thing with any language.
진단.
So you have to get a diagnosis, find out your strengths and weaknesses, right?
Okay.
In business, we call it a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats, right? Now, forget the opportunities and the threats. But if you look at the SWOT analysis, you find out what you're good at, what you're weak at, and where to improve.
네. 자, 이렇게 자기 진단을 통해서 레벨을 정확하게 파악을 한 다음에 여러 이제 아주 구체적인 플랜들을 짜면 좋을 것 같다는 생각이 드네요. 제가 시간이 벌써 보니까 거의 끝날 때가 돼서 한마디 정도로 좀 요약을 해달라고 부탁을 할 수 있을까요?
Sure.
One final word to our listeners.
Well, one thing I would like to tell everybody today. Number one, two things.
Yeah.
Importance of reviewing.
Reviewing.
Constantly review.
Okay.
I mean, I'll basically tell people review 3 times a day when you study. Right after you study, right before you go to sleep, and right after you wake up.
복습은 최소 3번.
Yeah,
네.
scientifically proven the fact that if you study these 3 times, you're going to have a long-term memory with what you just learned. And number two, there's no such thing as a business English. There really isn't.
Okay.
There's only everyday common English that's used in the business context. If you think about you and I are doing business, we're not going to be using all these fancy words. We use everyday language for in the business situation, right? So learn English every day. Listen to Morning Special every day.
Oh, thank you.
Practice your listening and always make time to do your output to practice what you've learned, right?
아웃풋에 이제 신경을 쓸 수 있도록 매일매일 영어를 접해라. 이런 팁이
Morning
될 것
Special
같습니다. 감사합니다.
I mean it.
Jooch 선생님 오늘 이렇게 시간 내주셔서 정말 감사합니다.
Thank you so much.
네. 오늘 선생님을 뵈니까요. 저는 이런 생각이 드네요. 걸어다니는 명언 백과사전이시다. 여러분도 명언 좋아하는 거 몇 개 좀 외우고 다니면 여기저기 유용하게 쓰일 것 같아요. 자, 오늘 당첨자 확인은 홈페이지에 들어와서 하시면 되고요. 네, 오늘 오디오 어학당 굿즈 받으실 세 분 6796님, 서진화님, 0412님께 보내드리도록 하겠습니다. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to wrap things up with Oasis, Don't Look Back in Anger. I'll see you in 22 hours.